party down, location mysterious. Wanna rock this con like my man James Tiberius. Jesse and Marina, they're mad clever like the Negus. Gonna guide you through the scenes, beam from London to Las Vegas. Where to go, how to dress, when to sleep, who to see. Celebs not to miss, Sardis Wong and SMG. Star Trek into awesome, build some memories at last. Set the proper course, the Shore Leave Podcast. Boom.
Stay tuned after the episode for a very important update.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Shore Leave, your Star Trek Convention Community podcast. I am just one of your hosts, Jesse Okendo. Joining me is your other host, Marina. Marina, you want to say hi?
Hi, this is Marina Kravchuk, and I can't believe we are finally doing this. Episode number 48.
Episode 48, and in case you've noticed, we are not the usual hosts. We have now assumed the reins of Shore Leave and are happy to be here. And just get some housekeeping out of the way. Shore Leave is part of the Tricorder Transmissions Network. If you enjoy what we do here on Shore Leave or any of the other Tricorder Transmission shows, please think about joining our patrons. You can join by going directly to www.patreon.com/tricordertransmissions or visiting our website at thetricordertransmissions.com/shoreleave and click on the Patreon link. Becoming a patron will give you instant access to our unedited and early release episodes, often with bonus material before or after the show. You'll also be invited to the monthly patrons-only Trek Chat exclusively for our Patreon supporters. So here we go. So Marina, what else we got going on today?
Well, before we actually start to talk about what's going on today, I suppose we can't go any further without giving the shout-out to the creators of this podcast, Heather Barker and Jeff Hewlett. They're the ones who created this. They're the ones who led this for the amazing, interestingly, very Star Trek, number 47 podcast episodes. So Heather and Jeff, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for these first 47 episodes, and thank you for trusting us to pick up the torch and to carry on. So, moving on. So today's topic is Destination Star Trek Birmingham. As you know, Destination is the official Star Trek convention in Europe, and both Jesse and I are going to be attending it, and we thought it's going to be fun to discuss the convention and to basically kind of put in a few details as far as preparing, especially if you've never been to this Destination convention and planning to attend. Now, Jesse, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Yes, we do have a special guest, and I'm just going to let him introduce himself. Scott, go ahead. Tell us who you are and why you're here.
Well, that's no pressure at all. Hi, everyone. I am Scott Hardy. I live in London, England, and I have been attending both Star Trek Las Vegas and the Destination Star Trek London and Destination Star Treks for many years. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Thanks for being here, Scott. We're probably gonna overwhelm you with a lot of questions. Hope you can handle it. But
I'll try my best.
We'll thank you in Birmingham once we get there.
All right, so let's kick it off. So the venue for the convention, that's the National Exhibition Center in Birmingham.
Let's stop.
I'm not going to, yes.
Start with, we forgot the Trek news.
Yeah, considering that we already introduced Scott, do you want to just swing back to that part and kind of that at the end before we say where we are online? Just kind of like a little...
Oh, sure.
Hear the news and everything.
Sure, all right.
All right, so...
so we'll go 3...
Yeah, so 3, 2, 1. All right, so the venue for the conventions, Destination Star Trek is going to be held at the National Exhibition Center in Birmingham. I mean, I'm not going to say UK, that's kind of obvious. Scott, if you could give us basically an introduction. I understand that the previous destination in UK was also held in Birmingham. So just give us an idea as far as location, sizing, like what sort of expectation can one have in terms of walking distances to the center, within the center, just a basic idea.
Sure. Well, I'll try and break it down for you. I mean, the National Exhibition Center, as you call it, it's broken down to the NEC Center, is what is generally referred to in the area. So if you're coming to Birmingham, ask for the NEC. Don't ask for the National Exhibition Center because most people won't know what you're talking about. Little tidbit for anyone who lives in the UK listening to this podcast, the NEC was where Gladiators was filmed. in the 90s there. Yeah, I don't know if you guys had that in America at all. Gladiators.
I'll have to look at that. I did not know that. So I maybe have already seen this and just don't know it.
You may well have. It's a big old center. In terms of location, it's based just outside of Birmingham town in a place called Solihull, which is still part of Birmingham, but it's like a smaller town outside. It has its own train station, though, so it's well connected. And there are several rather large hotels based around it because it's also based next to Birmingham International Airport. So for people that are traveling, you've got that right next to you as well.
Yeah, that appears to be very convenient. Actually, that's how I'm getting to the convention. I thankfully found a flight that via Dublin that gets in straight to Birmingham International Airport, and then judging from what I'm seeing on the map, it's actually everything is quite close. So I mean, I don't know how security is, but it almost feels like I could just walk out of the airport and hit.
Hey, Scott, how far is it from London? I'm flying into London to spend some time with Scott and hang out a bit. How far is that drive if you're coming in from London or anywhere else?
We'll be driving about 2 hours. It's basically one major motorway heading straight from London to Birmingham. It's very easy to access. I believe the M1 is the main motorway, but don't quote me on that. I'll follow the sat-nav if I'm honest with you.
Is it a speedway? Like, are you going to go 200 miles an hour?
Well, the speed limit is 70 miles an hour here, and as you know, Jesse, I follow the law quite strictly. So.
Yes. Granted.
So within the center itself, is there actually like an event map or a property map or something that can be checked out so people can kind of figure out where everything is? Or is that going to be just basically issued with the schedule on the day off when the convention opens, and then you kind of fly by the seat of your pants trying to figure out where everything is? Or is it more or less straightforward? I'm just kind of trying to get a feel for like how is it inside? Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly used mostly as a convention exhibition center anyway. I mean, you can go on the NEC's website and see a breakdown of what it looks like inside. You can also look up the 2016 Destination Star Trek Birmingham's inside map, which is available online, which would probably give you quite a fair idea of what they'll do with it inside, because they've got the same setup in terms of booths and such.
And Scott, so, when we're in Vegas, everybody hangs out at either the Masquerade or that center bar. Like, where do people hang? Is there a hangout kind of feel in the venue, or is it different in that respect?
So this is where the first sort of change or difference, I think, a lot of people will find quite jarring. There are some restaurants inside the NEC, and I mean, when I say restaurants, I mean more sort of fast food joints, Subway, that sort of thing. But most people tend to hang out in the adjacent hotels. So if I give you an example from the first Destination Star Trek in London in 2012, I stayed at the London Hilton next door, and you found pretty much Trekkies in the bar there 24/7. But you had to walk across to the hotel, whereas obviously in Vegas, you just walk through the Rio, and you find yourself at Masquerade pretty easily.
And is it the same kind of, like, are they up all hours, or is it more conservative?
Well, it's the British we're talking about here, so it's so of course it's non-stop drinking all day long. No, I mean it goes as the convention does. It's kind of quiet during the convention hours. And people stay up quite late in the evenings to about 3-4 in the morning. But the bar does stay open all night in most hotels in this country. So if you do want to pull an all-night between Saturday and Sunday, you can fill your liver and your boots.
Wow, I've never done that, so I might have to try it.
So is there well, I understand that there are a lot of hotels in the area. Is there one that can be kind of termed a convention, and convention is in quotation marks, convention hotel, where basically majority of people seem to be staying, where majority of those fan hangouts at the bars tend to happen, or is it just basically spread out wherever, all around the area?
Well, there is about, I'm not sure the exact figure, but there's about 3 to 4 large hotels next to the NEC. But the main one they're using, now there may be some confusion at some point, but there's 2 Hilton hotels attached to the NEC. There are name differences that I am just looking at now to tell you, but there's one that's being used as the main hotel, and then there's one that's being used as sort of a backup. The main Hilton, which is basically adjacent to the NEC, is where a lot of these sort of
I was
points
told by someone online that it's the one that's the Hilton Metropole, and that's actually the one that I reserved based on that recommendation. I was told that that's sort of like the main hotel, the closest to the event space. So
I've just checked and you're correct. Yeah, it's the Metropole. Exactly that.
The Metropole. Okay, great. All right. Well, that's going to be pretty exciting. All right. So I guess let's talk about the convention setup itself. So it's a 3-day convention. I think the show hours actually start like midday on Friday, so it's more like a 2.5 days, I suppose you could say. So it starts Friday at 2 o'clock and then ends on a Sunday at 6 o'clock. And it's hopefully going to be another whirlwind convention weekend full of fun. There are multiple ticket tiers, same thing as in Vegas. It is sold through Eventbrite, which is actually very useful. I rather like that. It's a really nice ticketing source. My understanding is basically... Actually, this is not that original. I've seen this at pretty much every single convention that I've gone to. You get a PDF via email that then gets printed or scanned later on when you actually get to the venue. So, Scott, give us basically an introduction as far as the ticket tiers, what the range is, and any personal experience, what you would recommend, basically. And by recommend, I mean those who are brand new to the convention, those who are brand new to fandom period, they've never been to any kind of convention, and for perhaps those who have been more than once or twice around the corner and, have a feel what the Trek convention is like. So the floor is yours.
Sure, no problem at all. Much like Creation's event in Las Vegas, it does have a range of tickets from expensive to reasonably priced, actually. If you're a first-time convention goer, I know a lot of people, and I know myself included when I went to my first convention, would be inclined to go all in, as it were. And if you want to do that, you can go with the Admiral VIP package, which still has tickets available for £2,999 sterling.
Wow, that. When I first went to Vegas, I did that. I went gold, but it wasn't that much.
Well, I think it's a little bit more akin to the actual VIP in Vegas, because that's the one where you get many more thousands thrown on top of the gold level, the gold weekend ticket. So just for those who are not familiar with pound sterling, that's $999 translates to just under $3,900. So it's a lot of money, but based on what I'm seeing in the description, it's actually pretty all exclusive, even though you do have certain limitations. I think you don't get to pick which particular autographs or photo ops are included. That's you basically notified later on what's part of the package, and that's true, I think, of all the ticket package tiers. Nevertheless, it's quite amazing. Those people who are planning to go, definitely sit down and make sure you read through all the details. That's a lot of very impressive information, let's put it this way. The Admiral VIP, and after that is Captain, correct?
That's right. It goes down to Captain after that. I mean, what I'll do, I'll just brief off some of the prices. So Captain's package is £795, which is a big jump down from $2,999. Down to Commander after that for £299, and then Lieutenant for £145. Now, these are all just weekend passes, basically. These all have varying levels of bonus things you get with it. And then after that, you have the sort of standard general admission tickets that you would get in Vegas as well. And you can buy a weekend of general admission or a 3-day or a per-day ticket, which I myself, I'm buying a Saturday and Sunday weekend ticket. I think Jesse's doing the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm sorry, Marina. I was rather impressed. So, like, when you talk about differences, I was so happy it was Eventbrite, because you got your ticket right away, which surprised me. Like, I know it seems so simple, but when you're used to the Creation, especially when you renew, you have to write down your credit card number and hope somebody reads it right before you get your ticket. I love the experience, and And it was, I wish everybody did it that way.
Yeah, and you don't pay for your ticket, in the sense of you do pay for your ticket, but you don't pay for the PDF, if you know what I mean. Obviously, creation charges are sort of a shipping and handling fee when you buy tickets online, even though you...
It's more of a handling or event fee rather than shipping, because obviously nothing has been shipped for quite many years now. But yeah, I noticed that there is like a pound fee that gets added on top of every single ticket, regardless whether it's admission or photo ops or any of the parties. So that seems to be like a little fee that's an add-on. But to echo Jesse, I do appreciate Eventbrite. I actually use it all the time for various events that I attend around New York. A lot of entities use that as the ticketing host. Just to kind of swing back, so you guys got the weekend ticket, which is the 2 Saturday and Sunday. I myself actually got a 3-day ticket because I figured actually when trying a brand new convention, it's actually kind of nice, given that I already have the experience of convention going, to actually have that flexibility when I'm getting the basic general admission ticket, and then I can tack on whatever other extras that I feel like that would be interesting to check out. So out of curiosity, for instance, I bought the opening ceremony ticket. This seems to be something that's very specific to European conventions. I know FedCon does opening ceremony as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious to check this out. But looking at the descriptions of the packages, certainly someone with no experience at destination, just generally Trek conventions, or no convention going, of course, going all in would be like a gold mine of, you have a give back, and you have this, and you have the photo op, and you get to meet the people at the breakfast, and so on and so forth. It's all pretty exciting.
What's the size difference, Scott? Like, so we're used to that big, 5,000 a day, sometimes more on a Saturday kind of thing. How big are we looking at when we think of this convention?
In terms of space, it's bigger than the Rio Convention Center.
Wow.
It uses less rooms though, so they'll have one massive room, much like they have the vendors hall, but they'll have a vendors hall and the free stage. I think they call it the Excelsior stage in DST. That's all in one big hall together, and then they'll usually have the separate main auditorium next door to it, and that's all they'll have. But the NEC is a massive building, so you'll find it's a much taller ceiling. It'll feel a lot more open when you're in there, especially for those people who have a lot of problems with claustrophobia in some of the conventions I've been to in the past. I know I feel like I'm really packed in. So the NEC is actually quite a tall building, so you've got space and room to breathe, or at least it feels that way.
Oh, that's
it's kind of reminiscent of large Comic-Cons. They tend to be inside this warehouse metal boxes, basically, where you have a giant space that basically subdivided into little areas that they say, okay, this is the vendor's hall, and this is the main stage, and this is whatever. This is going to be interesting to check out. Just to swing back to the tickets, basically, I think we covered the basics, and again, those who do want to get better understanding what each ticket includes, certainly go online, because every single ticket level is very nicely, expressed. You have all the details listed with all the pricing and everything. I did notice that a single-day ticketing is quite interesting, that there is no way to buy just a single-day Friday. It's included with either the 3-day ticket or with packages. So that's interesting.
I think what I tend to find with sorry to interrupt you there, Maria, what I tend to find with the Friday, especially at DST, and a kind of sort of the Wednesday of Vegas as well, is it's sort of a warm-up day. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's only half day at DST. It's more about, that day's more about vendors room and sort of getting to grips with your bearings of what you're doing, and Saturday and Sunday really where the show is. So that's probably one of the main reasons they don't need to sell Friday tickets, because if you did, you probably wouldn't have much fun anyway.
Oh, that's good. Kind of makes sense, actually. Yeah. And the last bit that I wanted to point out, that because that always gets brought up when we're starting to get ready to Vegas. Those people traveling with children, if you have a child that's 5 years old or younger, they actually do not require an admission ticket as long as you accompany them everywhere, obviously. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers the whole everything that I wanted to cover on this, as far as tickets are concerned. Now, I did mention that,
I'm sorry, Marina. Scott, is there any kind of tips or tricks for folks about tickets? Like, is it, I'm sounding like I've never been outside the U.S., but I promise you I have at least once. But is there any kind of, so like we get Groupon or Gold Star. Do you guys do any kind of discounts at the end of the day when they're closed? Like, what's the differences there?
The first DST had Groupon tickets available the week before. Now, I don't know what they did since because I never really paid attention. I just bought my tickets and didn't really look into it. But the first one was quite a lot of media interest because it had all the captains coming together. So that they did put a lot of time into that. In terms of recommendations for travelers, because I know Marina mentioned that earlier as well. I mean, if this is your first time and you have the cash spare, I would just say go all in on the Admiral VIP package. If you look at the details online, there's so much there. You would have a whale of a time. And I think it would be certainly worth your money if it's your first convention. You get to rub shoulders with Bill Shatner. Who wouldn't want to do that? In terms of a more frugal approach, which I tend to take with conventions now, I think the weekend or the 3-day ticket's the best way to go because it allows you to pick and choose what you want. You can still buy separate tickets to the DS9 screening or the open ceremony as Marina's doing. That would be my advice.
As I mentioned earlier, we have all these add-on events that can be tacked on the admission tickets. So let's talk about that. I already mentioned the opening ceremony, which my understanding from what I know, what I've seen online, it's basically just the introduction of the guests. I mean, I'm assuming whoever's available on Friday who would come on and basically get introduced on stage, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
All right. In addition, I have, let's see. Again, on my basis is what I've read online, so bear with me. Now, there are 2 parties, one held on Friday and one held on Saturday. Both of them are, separately ticketed for those people who do not have those included in their ticket packages. And they're themed, and this year the Friday party is Being William Shatner Party, and the one on Saturday is a Mirror Mirror Party, which will also feature the Enterprise Blues Band. Now, what's the scoop on the parties? Is that something that's done literally at every single destination? Do they always do them themed? Are they worth attending?
I think that's one of those ones that it depends on how you approach parties. If you like the Vegas style parties where they just sort of play music and you're left to your own devices, then these aren't maybe so much for you. I found that the DST ones tend to be more of a club type atmosphere. They really put a lot of work into the lighting and the DJing, and obviously the music act on the Saturday night panel this year will have the Enterprise Blues Band playing. They really put a lot of effort into it, whereas I feel like the Rio Las Vegas ones sometimes are a bit more just sort of the bar's open all day anyway, just come in and have a party. So if you like a good party, then DST is probably more your level.
And how long do the parties go for? Are they like just close at 2 like we're used to seeing, or is it a different type of party atmosphere?
If my memory serves, they close around about the 12 mark, just based on the fact that the NEC can only be open for certain hours of the day, as it's more of a convention center type thing, whereas what you tend to find, a lot of the people in the parties will then go directly to the nearest hotel bar, and you'll have your after party there.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. I think we've done that once or twice ourselves, Jesse.
Yeah. I don't know actually which one to pick, because I've been kind of jumping back and forth between, descriptions of the parties. On one hand, I really like the Enterprise Blues Band. It's, if you guys haven't had whoever's listening, if you haven't had the experience of checking them out, you definitely should, because that's a lot of fun. I guess I'll have to make my decision eventually, because it sounds like it could be great fun. Another special event that will be held during the destination is the red carpet world premiere of What We Have Left Behind documentary, the Deep Space Nine documentary. I'm not quite sure what the location is. I believe the website just indicates that it's going to be held at the event, so presumably it's going to be at NEC unless a different location is hired, but so far I have not seen any indication of that. So I believe the ticketing is done in 2 levels. There's premier sitting and standard sitting. Scott, are you planning to attend this?
I am sadly not planning to attend this one. I have pledged to the DS9 documentary some time ago, so I will have access to the movie when it's streamed online. But I felt I'm only going to be spending the Saturday night in Birmingham with a lot of people, so I thought I would just go out and enjoy the night myself with some friends instead of going to that. But I think it would be a great time for any of you diehard DS9 fans out there.
Oh, absolutely, especially if those who have followed the campaign and all the extra bits that have been posted over the last nearly 2 years, I believe. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful film. Jesse, what about you? Are you planning to attend?
No, I am one of the people that Scott. I'm going to hang out with Scott. He's so full disclosure, Scott's going to be like he's in charge because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a great business traveler, horrible leisure traveler. So I just asked Scott to tell me what to do. I think he's having fun with that.
Let's go off the air, Jesse. Let's not bring that onto the podcast, all right?
But no, I looked at all the add-on events and I didn't really see anything that I thought I wanted to do. The weird thing is looking at a list of add-on events. So, like, you guys remember when, was it the 50th? No, it was TNG's anniversary where they were doing a separate panel and everybody went crazy. So, like, when I saw these add-on events, I'm like, well, are they just calmer, or is it it's just the way you do it? You kind of always done it this way so that you don't have, I paid my big ticket, so I should get it free, type of thing.
It's one of those weird things in the UK that we don't have half as many conventions as you find in the States. Not even, let alone Star Trek ones. I mean, there's a destination every 2 years. Obviously, we have Vegas every year, along with Grand Slam, Sci-Fi, Comic-Con, that sort of stuff in America. So you tend to find that they have a lot of individual events at this because they will try and pack in everything they can to fulfill the need of the Trekkies in the UK.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because I know that the types of events, it's like really broad. It's not just like just parties or just a special panel. It's a little bit of everything. So it was good. It was nice to see. If I was like this first year, well, here's the problem. It's like I go to one of these and then I feel like I have to go every year. So I went to Star Trek Las Vegas just once because I'd never been. Star Trek Las Vegas was my first convention. I am now a yearly goer and I renew a ticket every year. So like I do the same thing with the cruise. I just wanted to go once. And now I'm going every year because like, you get the perk of signing up early. And so like but it's weird because so Scott, this is the thing. I hear 2 different stories. I hear it's not the same scale as Star Trek Las Vegas. And then I hear it's bigger than Star Trek Las Vegas. So that's really what's got my curiosity is like, with all the add-ons and everything, like, does it just not seem bigger because there's more things people are doing, type of stuff? It seems, and Marina, I don't know if you kind of had the same vibe. It's like I can't get
here's the thing, is that my convention going is that I started with Vegas. Well, actually, I started with a smaller Creation Con, but then Vegas became my thing, and that's my fixture of the year. That's my favorite event where I do go all the way out. And then as through the calendar year, I typically try to either go to events that I tried earlier and I really appreciated them and I enjoy going again. But usually it's going to be like one-off events where, like last year I tried Rhode Island Comic-Con and Denver Comic-Con. I am not planning to go to either one this year because, frankly, I tried them, and unless there's going to be something exciting that's going to attract my attention, I'm probably going to skip on and see what else is going to go on. So in this case, it's not so much that I want to go to a convention and compare it to Vegas. That's not why I go to conventions, even specifically Trek ones, because, nothing's going to compare. It's I find that Vegas is a thing in its own class. And B, I mean, what's the point? I'm going to be losing my brain. Like, oh, I'm doing this instead of that. No. What caught my attention is basically, I've done smaller events. I've done small non-creation, specifically Trek events. There was, of course, also Star Trek Mission. So I'm actually curious to see what combination of features make up Destination, because it would appear that it has certainly some very Comic-Con features, if you will, in terms of, being held in a large convention center, in terms of not having specifically closed holes, if you will, for separate theaters. That part seems actually a lot Comic-Con-like. And the fact that, you still have the tiering, that's pretty much every single convention has ticket tiering one way or another. I don't know. I can't see, I can't really say that, what I'm seeing is so much bigger than Vegas. It's just going to be a different arrangement of Trek during the convention.
Scott, what's your perspective? Because you've been to these both, right? And so you've got a perspective we don't have. What's your gut?
There's probably. I was just thinking about this whilst you guys are talking. I've got two different takes on it, and you can pick the one you prefer, I guess. One is, if you're from the UK and you're going to this, it's hard to think that this could ever be better than Vegas if you were comparing the two, because at the end of the day, you're still walking outside and seeing a Nando's or a Greg's. Now, you guys won't get that reference, but they're just restaurants in the UK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're still part of where you're from. You're not away from anything. It's just you're seeing a bit of Star Trek, and then you're walking out to where you were before. Whereas you travel the world, and it's completely different. My other take on it is it's sort of immersion versus scale. So when you travel to the Rio, you book in, and you stay in the Rio, and you go to the convention center, and you eat at Hash House. You kind of live and breathe Star Trek for 5-7 days. I'm sure you guys can agree with me on that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. This feels more like you're going to a convention and then you're walking out and doing your own thing, because you're not staying in the place, firstly, so you have to walk out anyway. And we all know there's been days in the Rio where we've not even gone outside.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
we love that air conditioning. Whereas, you tend to go out afterwards, and you'll go to Birmingham, or you'll go into London, and you'll do your own thing. But inside, I think I found it to be a lot bigger in scale. So the auditoriums are bigger. There's a lot more vendors. The vendors hall is much larger. There's more individual parties, more bits and bobs you can do than Vegas. So it's probably scale versus immersion, I would say.
All right.
Well,
speaking of the I suppose the main theater, which is the Enterprise stage, correct? How big is it? Do you have any idea as far as the seating, the numbers, how many people can be there?
I would be hesitant to guess a number. I would be pulling something out of a hat to know the exact figure. I just know that it's probably around about 2/3 of what they get in the Rio.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot more, it's wider. So instead of having that massive length of the hall, there's more seats to the left and right, and it's a bit more squished forward. If you can picture that in your head. So it's wider, but not as long.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Generally, how does it compare to the main theater? How's the acoustics, the lighting? Because obviously this is inside the convention center rather than conference facilities.
This is another thing that you'll see that there's been a bit more money spent on it at DST. The lighting I've always found, and the production work is a slightly higher quality. The NEC do a lot of conventions, so does the Rio, to be fair. But the NEC has been refitted more recently than the Rio has. Its lighting functions are better. The sound is a lot better. There's more video screens along the walls. It feels like you're a bit more, and they do a lot of drop lighting in the room, whereas in the Rio it tends to be quite bright even when the panels are on. Yeah. It's a lot more sort of a cinematic experience when you're at DST.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do have personal interest in asking that because I really enjoy taking photographs during panels, Q&A panels with guests. So I was actually wondering how different the experience would be. Obviously, I'm already sitting in the equivalent of the general admission section, so I'm going to be pretty far away probably. But nevertheless, I was curious about the lighting in terms of, how well would my photos come out.
Yeah, I'm never really one for taking photos in the convention hall themselves. I don't know if you'd have more trouble with it, but it's certainly darker inside. So if your camera can adjust for that, I'm sure you'll be fine. But it's not as bright as it is inside the Rio. Certainly more like a cinema as opposed to, well, whatever the Rio is.
Okay, yeah, because basically even in Rio, once you're past, I don't know, 10 feet out, maybe, the flash is pretty much pointless, and then everything is basically riding on the stage lighting. So, well, we'll see. It's going to be a new and hopefully interesting experience doing that. Let's see, what else? Well, this is not so much an add-on things per se, but this is certainly other features of the convention that I wanted to touch upon. Now, I understand that there is a museum, which is just basically like an exhibition of props and costumes from privately owned collection. Is that the same thing every year? Does that vary? I'm assuming this is probably something where Martin Natter, the German collector, is probably involved, because I know that he has one of the largest collections of track costumes and props, I think, in the world right now, actually, not only Europe. So just can you talk about the museum a little bit?
Yeah, it is something that recurs every year, and it tends to be mostly the same props. I think it is the gentleman you were talking about from Germany, the Filmwelt collection, if I remember.
That's right. That's Martin, yes.
Yeah, that's the one. He does tend to get new bits and bobs every couple of years. I remember from the first year there was a lot of TNG props, costumes. I remember there was a copy of Data's head from the season.
Times Arrow?
Season 5, sorry. Yeah, Times Arrow. That's the one.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was about, yeah.
That's pretty fun. Well, this one, I'm sure that we could probably dedicate a lot of time on, because I know a lot of people are into cosplay. There is Cosplay Masquerade, which I'm assuming is somewhat equivalent to SLV's costume contest. Now, I noticed that they are extremely specific as far as the judging. I found the whole page of basically describing how the judging is done and all the different categories and criteria. Now, I don't know, did you cosplay yourself?
No, I don't. Whilst I do own a couple of TOS tunics, they've never made it out the house, unfortunately.
All right. So, well, is there anything that you could tell us about the masquerade generally? I mean, I'm assuming this is, again, held somewhere in the open space. I don't know, maybe at the Enterprise stage or wherever, and the judging is probably public. So anything you can throw at us? Yeah,
just from previous knowledge of sort of seeing it, I generally tend to stay away from the cosplay side of things. Never really been much of a passion of mine, but you tend to see on the day of judging, you'll see a lot more costumes. They tend to have a parade at some point during the day where they'll walk through the main concourse leading into the convention center, and then they'll be up on the main stage, it will be, which I think is the Enterprise stage, and that will be where the judging is done. Usually it's a closed door event, much like it is in the Las Vegas, so it's people, you can't go in and watch it, and then there'll be an unveiling at the end where you can go in and watch.
Wow. So I'm assuming this is Saturday. Saturdays tend to be the busiest and most attended day. So
yes, I think you're right. I'm just scrolling through now to try and find out the exact answer to that question.
It's Saturday.
Yeah.
There we go.
And it's on the Voyager stage itself.
They've moved it.
Yeah, just to kind of interrupt everybody, because we didn't actually mention it. So there are 3 stages overall. One is the largest one, the Enterprise stage, which has primarily the paid talks, as far as I understand. And then the second one is the Voyager, which has non-paid talks, but also with invited guests. And then the third one, Excelsior, tends to have fan panels. Is that always like that? Did they set it up from the get-go like this, or does that change from year to year?
That's something they've done since the beginning. The company that runs DST, Showmasters, have been doing conventions in the UK for nigh on 15 years now. There are a lot more about signings and paid talks. That's generally how they've always run their shows. And so that's what they've carried over into this. The addition of having free talks is actually something that came around in the second phase of Destination Star Trek. The first time round, it was just all paid talks. You couldn't have a seat unless you paid for it. The second year round, which I think it was the 2014 one, I might be wrong, you might have to correct me on that, there was a free area, and then there was paid talks, and that's what they've kept it ever since.
How interesting. It's very unusual to have, I mean, not the whole idea of paid talks, obviously. We've had special events, but usually, majority of programming, regardless of the convention type, tends to be, yes, at Comic-Cons it's first come, first served. Nevertheless, you don't have to pay. So that's, I only got, actually, I have to say, I only got one paid ticket, and I'm, let's be honest, I've actually met pretty much everybody who's going to be the guest except for a few behind-the-scenes guests, and there's going to be an astronaut. So I can't afford to be selective, but it's an interesting thing to kind of keep in mind, this whole thing, the paid talks versus non-paid talks. All right, shall we move on to autograph and photo ops? Have we exhausted the topic of general venue/admissions subject?
I think we have. I think it's just a different. It's different, right? And that's the part that kind of gets me. I'm like, ooh, I remember when.
I have to say I'm not so much. I'm actually kind of excited. When Star Trek Mission New York convention was about to be, they announced it and the information started to appear. That one is run by ReedPop, and who do C2E2 in Chicago and New York Comic-Con, Fan Expo conventions. So those are very large events. I was actually very excited because, again, it was different. It's sort of like it's the familiar and comfortable Trek fandom, only expressed in a different fashion. So it's kind of interesting to contrast and experience something else. Now, of course, I'm sure I'm going to come across a situation that's going to annoy me because it's done differently, not the way I'm used to at, say, Vegas. But nevertheless, it's fun, new convention experience. So autographs and photo ops. I see that it's done slightly different. The pricing is available if you go online and click on the names of the invited guests, primarily the actors, actually. The pricing, you can see how much the autographs are, how much the photo ops are. Photo ops can be pre-purchased, and it's an interesting feature when you get to the page on the Eventbrite, when you pick who you want to get the photo op for. You actually have, they do them in batches. And I'm kind of assuming that those batches kind of correspond to the timing when the photo ops themselves are going to be done during the day. Does that sound reasonable, realistic, what actually happens?
Yeah, that's basically how they do it. Again, the showmasters, people who run the show, have been doing these sort of things for years, and they're very good at structuring and lining up timings because they know us British like to be precise.
And that's one thing that I've heard about this convention as well, is that you don't have as much queuing for like photo ops, autograph. You're not in line for hours and hours, I think, because of the way they do it. Is that an accurate statement, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I have experienced my fair share of queuing at this event, but I compare that to, say, other ones I've been to in the past, and again, we're comparing it to Las Vegas. There's less of it, I would say, altogether.
All right.
Or if you're queuing, you have to be at a certain place or a certain time, so you can prepare for it, at least.
Now, the photos are printed instantly. So basically, you walk away from the photo booth or photo room, and you actually have the photo right there with you in your hands, correct?
Mm-hmm. That is correct. Although I will... Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and I was curious, is it the same way, like, can you, because I didn't find this online, can you purchase the photographs as in digital form, as JPEGs?
Yes.
And if, oh, that's wonderful. That's actually, again, personal question for me. How do you do that? Is there like a little sign-up sheet? Can you do it? There's like a link that they sent you where you can type in your, I don't know, number and pay on it for it online. How do you order the JPEGs?
It's done after, when you collect the photograph. But one thing I will say, and it's just done by a bit more, it's not on a piece of paper, it's more digital, so you give them an email address on a portal and they'll send it to you a lot quicker than Creation tends to do. I would recommend all people that are getting photo ops to get the digitals done, because they use instant printers for their photos. Obviously, that's why you get them so quickly. The quality of the photo paper used is not very good. This is coming from someone who used to work in a photo lab, so sorry I'm being a bit snobby about it, but it's not on the nice proper photo paper that I would argue that Creation use. So I would say get the digital file and then go to your nearest photography store, drugstore, wherever you want to go, and get them printed off there on better paper.
That is
I also noticed that they print on a smaller size photo. It's a 6x9 rather than 8x10 that you typically see at not only Creation conventions but just generally at various conventions in the United States. I wonder if there's a reason for that, but I was kind of like, at first I was trying to figure out, is that like actually inches, or perhaps it's like a really, really small photo in centimeters, but it is 6 inches by 9 inches. Also, is there a limitation how many people are allowed to be in a photo? So for instance, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go on. Some people do have a limit that the individual actors will set, which you'll find out probably later on. But generally, from my experience, it's if you buy a ticket, you're in the photo. So it's a different to Creation, where, say, I would buy one ticket and up to 2 people can use that ticket.
Yeah.
Say you want 2 people in the photo, you have to buy 2 tickets. But if you want 10 people in the photo, you have to buy 10 tickets. Whereas with Creation, you can only have 2 people in the photo, regardless.
Well, it's 2. Yeah, they actually changed it in the last 2 years. You can have 4, but you have to bring 2 tickets then. That's actually quite interesting. Let's see. Jesse, have you decided you're going to do any photo ops this time around, or you're just going to observe?
No, I'm not going to do any photo ops here, just because I've got who okay, so I went a little crazy on the discovery photos at Las Vegas. So
yes, we have noticed.
My photo budget is non-existent right now. I'm happy. I think I'll just be lucky to eat when I'm there.
Yeah, I am trying to keep my budget as on a tight a leash as I can possibly manage. But there is one photo op that I actually, it was one of those things that kind of sparked my attention when I was looking up the information on Destination this year. Armin Shimmerman is going to be made up as Quark. And this is the first time that something like this has happened ever since he hung up his ears when Deep Space Nine went off the air. And I'm going to venture a guess probably the last, because I don't think he
doesn't like it at all.
At all. And I'm grateful to both Max and Aaron for doing that consistently over several years now, and doing like a little Ferengi show at Vegas and other Creation conventions. But this certainly is something that's so unique that I was like, well, I am spending those, I think it's 65 pounds or something, because this is going to be Armin Shimmerman standing in the reproduction of the bar.
That's
and
going to be awesome.
I'm going to be there. All right, so let's talk about the autographing, because my understanding is that as opposed to photo ops, autographs cannot be pre-purchased online. So it's actually very Comic-Con-like, where you pay in cash and you can only get the autographs on the day off whenever the guest is actually there. But differently from Comic-Con, there's actually something called virtual queuing that Showmasters appears to apply quite successfully. So, Scott, any personal experience with that?
Yeah, so virtual queuing is kind of it's a neat idea that I think it should be implemented in more conventions, really. So you go and collect a ticket from a staff member that gives you a certain time of the day you need to be there, and the numbers, and it gives you your space in the queue, basically. So once they've called that number, you can walk up and get your autograph. Now, some people will turn up earlier and queue, which will cause you to have to queue a little bit, but it saves a lot of people just standing in line. And we've all been in those long lines, say for photo ops and for autographs in the past, that we've arrived at the set time and about 100 people have got there before us anyway, and we just have to sit there and ride the wave. Whereas this allows you to be a little bit more precise with your time, because you know your number's up, and you can go and get your autograph and get on with your day and go back to enjoying the convention.
How do you find out what your number is, like when they actually call it out? Is that flashing on a screen somewhere? Do you get a pop-up in the app, or I don't know? Yeah.
In the past, it's been on whiteboards near to the individual autograph stalls.
Uh-huh.
So they'll be, say, calling Patrick Stewart 100 to 150. I know he's not going, but that's just one I remember from the past. And those are the ones that are being served now. And that's when you know it's your time to go up.
If it just so happens that you ran late, you're number 100, and then, you turn around and you missed it, and they're already doing 200, can you kind of come back? They're going to still fit you into the queue, or you basically lost lost your place and you have to start over, I don't know, next morning or something?
Not at all, no. So if you've missed it because you've been queuing up for something else, they will get you right into the queue, and you can go in and crack on. And what they do tend to do as well, if you do have a conflict of timing, if you go speak to one of the staff, they will try their best to try and slot you in at the front just to get your signature sorted.
Wow. That's pretty fun. Let's see, what else did I notice? That's something that I've only seen generally at Comic-Cons, actually, that there is there is no specifics yet online, but I did find a mention that there is a pre-order autograph service. So basically those people who cannot make it to the convention, but there is a guest whose autograph they would really like to have, they can actually contact the convention and or somebody hired by convention host, and they will get them the autograph. Is that something that they've had, all along? Is that something that's new this year? Do you know anybody who's actually used that at Destination?
I actually have not seen that before. I think it may well be new to either this year or at least the one before that I didn't attend. I do not know anyone that's used it, no, but it is a good idea. There are a lot of people that can't make these things and would really like to have that signature, so good on them.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. Again, I just found like a single mention of it online, and saying that the information is going to be put on at some point. I don't know. Maybe it's a boilerplate left from a different event, and they just used it this year. Hopefully, we'll see further on, closer to the event, if they actually will put up something as far as that kind of service is concerned. Just finishing up as far as autographing, the behind-the-scenes guests. So I know there's a prop master. I know that there are, Larry Nemechek is going. I don't know if it's something that, again, is automatically put if you go to the guest information page, but I did notice that when you click on those names, so not the actors, there is actually like the autograph field says free. So I'm assuming that if behind the scenes guests are signing, they actually are doing it for free. Again, I'm assuming that's kind of similar to Vegas. Is that something that they've done in previous years as well, or they actually haven't had, because I haven't had a chance to track all the guests through the years that attended Destination. Did they have behind-the-scenes guests previously?
Yes, they have, and they do sort of ad hoc autograph signings throughout the day. What you'll tend to do is see signs probably towards the entrance saying so-and-so will be signing from 12 till 2 for free at this place. Come on by. And it will be very much like that. They won't be there all day. It will be a couple of hours of their own time they're giving up to come and meet the fans. So be on the lookout for those sort of signs. They will try and make them obvious to people, but they're only going to have a certain amount of time, and they've only got a certain amount of signatures you can do in that time. So please pay attention and look for those signs.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So we did mention the guests. I don't know, Jesse, do you want to talk over that? Because it's pretty much self-explanatory for anyone who goes. That's the first thing that pops up online, the listing of all the guests. Any feedback? Anyone that you're yourself really looking forward to seeing?
Not for me. I celebrating the DS9 25th anniversary is fun. It's fun. I'm happy that I'm seeing a lot of those guests there, and I'm kind of just curious to see what that looks like at Destination, right? Because Vegas, I love Vegas, but I didn't really get the feel of we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of DS9. I get that feel a lot more when I'm looking at the website. Could be that like the main picture is DS9 25th anniversary, but. So I'm looking forward for those guys. I do have a question on the guests. So Scott, do they I can't see all of the panels, if you will, or anything on the schedule that's out there so far. But do they have like group panels? Like, how in Vegas they have like Nana Visitor and Rene Auberginois and, that type of thing. Do they pair them up, or how? Is there any rhyme or reason to how those guests kind of get on a panel and kind of work together?
Yeah, they do have group panels. I mean, there's a few that have been announced so far. There's a Klingons from Discovery panel and a couple other ones I was reading. I think there's a Ferengi one at some point as well. And some of those are free, which is quite nice. But they do tend to have a lot more individual ones because they have just less guests and they still have free stages to use. So you will find there'll probably be like a Wilson Cruz one by himself or a Mary Wiseman by herself as well.
Oh, that's good to know.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to see sort of an unusual guest, even though Vegas did have science guests in previous years, but this is kind of an actual astronaut. Fred Hayes is listed as one of the guests now. I'm assuming he's probably going to do his own panel as well, and that would be absolutely amazing. For those people who don't know, this is Apollo missions. He was a backup pilot for the Apollo 8 and Apollo 11. He was a backup commander for Apollo 16, and of course the famous Apollo 13, the successful failure, as they say. So this is actually quite amazing. That's another thing that I saw the name. I'm like, I don't know, does he live in Europe? How did they get him? I'm really looking forward to that. Speaking of the schedule, I did see that there was basic drafts in PDF format that were posted online. It does seem to be just the main panels, and again, main is sort of in quotation marks, and a whole lot of empty time slots. So again, I'm assuming that those time slots will be filled with something else, whether there's going to be individual panels or something else going on any of the stages. And can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's one of those things that they tend to simulate creation with the programs. You'll find it will get posted probably with a week or just less than leading up to it, because they will probably still have a couple more guests they haven't announced, and so they're trying to finalize a few times. Especially they've just added all the Discovery cast as well, so they're probably still trying to slot times in there. So you'll probably see it either at the end of this coming week or the beginning of the next.
Oh. That's going to be interesting.
With the schedule, do you have a lot of overlapping then? I'm guessing you have a little bit because some of the events are paid and some of them aren't. Is there any? In Vegas we don't get a lot of, I'm going to miss this because I want to see this. You see it a little, but not a lot. How's that feel in DST? Is it kind of the same, or is everything pretty much you'll make it?
I think it tends to be more that you'll make it, but that's because they have a lot of paid talks. So unless you're one of these, you're the admiral level or maybe captain's level where you're going to a lot of the talks, you will find that you'll have a lot of time on your hands, because you won't be able to get into half of them anyway.
Yeah. And the schedule physically itself, do they usually provide a schedule like you get at Creation, or are they moving to digital like a lot of the conventions are? Like Dragon Con, for example, now it's all digital. So you don't have paper, and for some that's really daunting. So is there an app or anything that you have for Destination, or what do you think?
They've had apps in the past, but I haven't seen one advertised this year. There will be a digital PDF version that will come out, which I recommend everyone just downloads, because one thing they do differently to Creation is that the guide is paid for.
Ah.
Wow.
Yeah. I did notice that in the packages it said, whatever it's called, a gift program or something like that. And I was like,
exactly.
Well, that's curious. I wonder if it's just printed on a nicer paper or something. That's what it is. Gotcha.
I think it's only about £5, which is not a lot when you're coming to these things compared to what you'll be paying for autographs and such. But it's not like Creation where you can go up and grab 5 copies.
Yeah. Yeah, which I tend to actually.
Yeah.
Okay, well, very good to know. Speaking of scheduling, so that third stage, the one with the fan events, what sort of fan events are we talking about? Is that something, and how do people actually do that? Just people randomly contacting the host and saying, I would really like to talk about, I don't know, women in Trek or something like that. Do you know anything about that? Like, what sort of events do they actually put on the Excelsior stage?
It is a lot more. I mean, for those who have attended Las Vegas that are listening to this podcast, it's a lot more like the CBS All Access stage, where, or sometimes even the DeForest Kelley stage, where you'll have, other podcasts will do shows, and you'll have women in Trek, that sort of thing, niche topics that they'll cover. And a lot of people will just write to Showmasters like they write to Creation, just pitch their ideas. I mean, I've pitched ideas in the past. Some of mine and Jesse's friends have done shows before as well. So you just send an email and pitch.
Huh. All right. Definitely have to check that out. All right. Let's see, what else? Now, we did mention the vendor hall, and you mentioned that it is much bigger. So what kind of vendors can we expect to be present? Is it somebody familiar, same people who go to Vegas or any other convention that has sci-fi component, or is it something that has purely European/UK feel to it?
There'll be a bit of both. I mean, most of the vendors that we saw this year in Vegas will be there. I know at least two that I spoke to that were going. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. The Film World Collection vendors will be there. They actually weren't at Vegas this year, but they usually do go. They'll have a rather large presence because obviously they're bringing their museum along with them as well. They tend to sell a lot of merchandise when they come along. But you will also have a lot more, because there's more room, and I think it's more affordable for the vendors. You'll have a lot more sort of, I say third-party vendors, but things that aren't necessarily associated to Star Trek. I remember vaguely a couple of years ago there was someone selling oversized bean bags.
Oh.
Sure. They were massive bean bags. They looked quite comfy. I almost bought one, and they were right by the door when you came in. So it was a good place to be. But, there's a lot more opportunity for other things that maybe even just slightly connected to science fiction that will be around. But at least it'll give you other things to browse.
Yeah, that's always fun, because with our memorabilia and our quote unquote stuff, it's very rarely do we get something new. So I like it when we mix up other vendors, because then at least there's something else that we know we're interested in. But and in Vegas I get that. How in Vegas you go like vendor to vendor because they're selling the same thing and you're trying to figure out who sells it for less, right? Is there a bit of
basically
is there a bit of that going on too?
There's a little bit of that. I think you'll find that at most places you'll go, there'll be a lot of bargaining with people and trying to find the best deal. But then I think that will probably only account for about half of what you see, and the rest will be things that I imagine you haven't seen before.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't wait. That's actually one of my favorite things to do when I go to a brand new convention. Is I can't wait to get into the equivalent, whatever it's called, vendor room, vendor hall, vendor center, and just to actually see what's out there. Obviously, Comic-Cons tend to have a huge variety of stuff across various genres. So this is going to be fun. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Speaking generally of the convention space, now you did mention in the very beginning that there are basically junk food type places. Is there something that sort of arranged specifically while the convention is there? So there are like special concessions with, I don't know, snack foods or something. Are there water stations, or you basically every man by themselves, if you need to eat, if you need to have water, bring your own stuff, and that's it?
There's two bits of advice I will give on this. One's not to do with eating, but I will throw it in because it seems like a good time to mention it. With eating, I would stock up in the supermarkets nearby. I think there's I will look it up actually whilst I'm doing this, but stock up on snacks before you go, because there are some small restaurants in there like Subway and that sort of thing, but they tend to sell out of things quite fast because they don't particularly plan that well. And there are water fountains around, but there aren't many. Unlike sort of Creation in Las Vegas, there is only a few. So I would, I'm just checking out. There's a Tesco rather close by, which is a supermarket that you could pop into and grab some rather well-priced snacks and a large bottle of water, I would say, to do that. And the other bit of advice I would give is find a cash point.
Okay.
An ATM, I think you guys would call it, and withdraw your money outside of the NEC. They don't charge in there, but they only tend to have one or two, and they tend to lose and run out of money very quickly, and the queues are very long. So withdraw your money beforehand. If you're traveling in from the States, maybe just take your cash with you. If you're a UK visitor, I would just say draw some money out before you go.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Well, I guess we can sort of start to wrap up because we covered all the main items that need to be kind of touched upon. Again, this is just a sort of a prep episode, and I suppose it's not going to be too much of a reveal that Jesse and I are actually planning a follow-up to this, sort of like how did we actually made out.
You gave away the surprise.
Something I wanted to bring up, I found that the frequently asked questions section on Destination's website is extremely helpful. There were some tidbits that kind of they answered all the necessary information. So, for instance, there is actually going to be a cloakroom. So that actually brings up a question. What's the weather like in October in Birmingham? Yeah, can I expect to be wearing a really heavy jacket, or can I make do with, I don't know, a fleece and a T-shirt?
It's Birmingham, so any time of the year expect overcast skies. No, I'm being mean to Birmingham now, which I shouldn't be. It's October in Middle England, so I would say dress for being a bit chilly. So I would say a light jacket most days. Sure. I wouldn't expect it to rain, but it's definitely not going to be T-shirt weather.
All right, that's good to know. So again, as I said, there will be a cloakroom. So if somebody is coming with a jacket, I guess you will have a place to put it, so you're not dragging it around with all your stuff through the convention. As far as the weapons policy, this kind of ties back to our very tiny cosplay discussion, but metal weapon replicas are not permitted. Otherwise, from what I gathered from the description, is basically use your head and be reasonable as far as what you're bringing. Just keep it wrapped and make sure that it's not a potential danger to others when you're in a really crowded area.
Do you have that fear, Scott? Like, you know how we've gotten to be fearful a little bit of any type of weapon, and now, if it looks like a weapon, like, don't bring your batleth kind of thing. Is that crossover culturally, or are you guys a little more relaxed and not as freaked out about, something that might look like a gun?
It tends to be a little bit more relaxed in the UK, as I do attend a few conventions here per year. You will see phasers, and you will see, that sort of thing. Batleths, sort of rubbery ones, but certainly not metal ones. Yeah, it's a bit more relaxed. It's definitely not the sort of zero phaser policy that you've seen in some other shows.
Yeah, definitely.
One last bit that I wanted to mention, and again, this is something that can be found online. Destination's website actually has quite an extensive section basically touching upon the accessibility. So people with disabilities, as far as access, NEC is apparently fully accessible, and there are medical teams available inside, which kind of tends to be true for large convention spaces regardless. It's actually the same thing, I think, in U.S. There is something that I came across that those people who do need assistance while they're moving around the convention, there is something called a carer pass. So it's not, this person cannot do also photo ops and other things. You would actually have to pay for those. But if they're just there to assist an actual attendee, paying attendee, that's something that can be, you can reach out to the convention, and we'll set you up with a pass to, for your carer to come with you. So I guess that's any other loose ends. Anybody wants to bring up something else?
No, I think that was good. Let me go back to Scott real quick. Scott, is there anything we didn't mention that you wanted to kind of give us a heads up? And I'll confess right now that this first podcast has been very self-serving for Marina and I.
I agree, and thank you for giving us the download because this is, but it's fun. It's great to have someone who's had the experience.
Yeah, and Scott's been he's very photogenic over the podcast. So like I knew he'd be great to help us out and help us get our feet wet. So Scott, I do want to thank you in case I forget to do it before we close up. So you've been very helpful, and I think a lot of people who listen to this are gonna get a lot out of it. And I look forward to getting you back, hopefully, and getting your input. Shout out to Scott. He gave me a lot of input in terms of this first episode. So thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you for calling me photogenic over an audio podcast. So I've never had that in my life. So yeah. Thank you all the same. I will just say to those attending, if you haven't gone before and this is your first time boldly going to Destination Star Trek, I would say do your homework, read the website, pack some snacks, and be prepared to be on your feet all day. So wear some nice trainers, because unlike other conventions that you may have gone to in the past where you could just go to the main hall and sit down for an hour just to chill out, you might not have that option because there's far less seating in the free theaters. You will be standing. There are not a lot of chairs. So just wear comfy clothes and bring some snacks.
Perfect.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So Marina, do you want to? Why don't we go through? So before we close up, we've had some kind of convention-specific stuff that has come up. So
it's just basically think about it as like a small Trek convention news, I suppose I could say.
Yeah.
And this is something that just to kind of to close up our first episode. Just a few announcements, and this is something actually specifically related to Star Trek Las Vegas. This week, literally in the last 24 hours, the Captain's Chair has gone on sale. The Captain's Chair tickets. Along with somewhat disconcerting piece of information for some, I'm sure, is that the special evening dinner Friday is actually not part of the ticket package anymore. So Captain's Chair no longer has a special dinner. Now, for those people who did re-up or actually purchased a new Captain's Chair at the end of the convention on Sunday, they do have the option of, well, they don't have the option. I mean, the dinner is still part of their package, but they have the option. Either they get a refund for it, which I believe is $70, or they have the option of going to the dinner that the Gold Weekend package will have on Thursday. And, if they decide to do that, they also get $100 in, again, quotation marks, creation money, which is basically the money that you can only spend at the creation tables in the vendor room. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as you're researching potentially a Star Trek Las Vegas convention experience. It's a little bit of a bummer, but, that's how things are. So as of right now, we do have the Gold Weekend packages still on sale, and now the Captain's Chair is also available. What else? As far as Trek conventions specifically,
not Trek, but you are headed towards where this weekend? Miss, I'm jealous of your convention going.
Jesse, you just had to point out how nutty my October is going to be. I actually have 3 conventions to attend this coming month. So the next weekend is New York Comic-Con, obviously in New York. I am looking forward to that just because for me, New York Comic-Con is basically like a giant shopping expo. I spend pretty much my entire Saturday just wandering through Javits Center that's filled with all sorts of wonderful collectible nerdy geekness. So there will be Star Trek representation. As we know, the Discovery cast has been announced. They will be doing a large panel at the Madison Square Garden Theater. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go there because it's basically going to be spending the entire day waiting in line to try and get in. And there's no guarantee because New York Comic-Con actually does not clear the rooms, stages, theaters, whatever you may call them, between the panels. So those folks who are going for, I don't know, Walking Dead or something, they're going to be stuck there since the early morning. Chances are I'm not going to be able to get in. So I'll just admire from afar. I'll pick up a few Star Trek exclusives that will be available in the vendor hall and that's going to be the extent of it. But besides that and the Destination Star Trek, there's also a small fan-run convention in Albany, New York, called Northeast TrekCon. It's been held only once before in 2016, and now it's back, and it actually looks bigger and better. So those people who are in the area, if you're in the northeast of the United States, or if you are close by enough in Canada, or just generally like to travel through the United States, certainly check it out, www.northeasttrek.com. And it has wonderful, again, Deep Space Nine celebration, a lot of Deep Space Nine guests. There's going to be representation from scientists at the local University of Albany. There's going to be at least, I think, 5 or 6 scientists who will be probably doing similar stuff that they did in 2016, which is science panels. Along with a couple of dinners. There's going to be like a Klingon party. So definitely, if you're interested, we certainly have the shortage of Trek-specific events generally, regardless where you are in the world. Definitely check this out. It's going to be fun. No way you can make it, Jesse, can you?
No, I have exceeded my convention budget. I think I'll just bring my ramen noodles to Birmingham, well, however you say it, Scott. I'm sorry. No, I think that's good. I think the only other bit of news that we caught on to was because of Star Trek Las Vegas, I know we had people who were planning to go to the Las Vegas Fan Fusion event that was put on by that same company that did, had the whole Phoenix Comic-Con debacle where they got sued for the name. That got canceled, I think, probably due to finances and not enough sales. So, and they hadn't announced guests or anything. So if you haven't heard and you were planning on going, don't do that. And they were going to refund everybody. It's the only other thing I've heard. I think that's it. Any other convention news we want to go over before we close up?
No, well, just a quick thing. If those people who, and I come across every once in a while when a person says, well, how do you know when this thing is happening? It certainly helps to be on the convention circuit because eventually you kind of, between Facebook and Twitter, things kind of just, you start to keep track of multiple events out there. If you're interested in knowing specifically when Trek actors are making appearances, there's a very helpful website. It's actually also fan-run, and if you yourself know a piece of information when somebody's going to be doing a signing event, a book event, a convention appearance, you can actually email the owner of this blog, and they will put the little note with the link. It's called Star Trek Appearances, StarTrekAppearances.blogspot.com. Check it out. It's very helpful. You can basically search it by just the usual Control F, and search for the name of the closest city next to you, or by name of the actor that interests you. Chances are they might pop up, and you have a very nice listing of all the gazillion places where, say, William Shatner makes appearances. But it's certainly a helpful thing, and it kind of gives you an idea what kind of events the actors usually make appearances at, and it may point you to the next convention is going to be your home away from home. Who knows? And I guess that's basically it from me.
That's it for me as well. This is our first solo go as host of the Shore Leave. So we do have plans. Again, we talked about coming back to do a post-DST show, and of course we'll come back thinking once a month, and we'll hit all those conventions that happen between them. If before that you want to give us some feedback or ask us to talk about something specific, feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media. To reach us, we're at the tricordertransmissions.com/shoreleave. You can reach us there. We're also on Twitter at shoreleave and Facebook at shoreleave podcast. And then we will be happy to kind of listen and talk about what you have to talk about. And that's about it. Marina, how do we get a hold of you?
You can find me on Facebook you can search by my full name, and I'm sure you'll pop up, or you can search by my handle, which should still work, and it's actually the same thing that I use for Twitter as well, which is at Dracorex, DrakKOREX. And that's basically it. My Twitter account is public, so you can always direct message me. Facebook is private. But if you feel like, if you can only reach out to me via Facebook, make sure just to, send a message introducing yourself. I don't generally just randomly friend people anyway. So that's basically it. Scott, what can people find you online?
You can find me at Tiberius Hardy, Hardy, on both Twitter and Instagram. On the Facebook, I am under the same name, although I'm very well hidden, so you probably will never find me. I also want to thank you both for inviting me on your first show together. It's an honor to do it with yourselves.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and you can find me at Outrageous Okendo. That's at OUTRAJESOKENDO, Outrageous Okendo on Twitter, and just my name on Facebook. And my Facebook is public, so you can find me pretty easy.
That does wrap up episode 48 of Shore Leave. We're happy you guys are here. We want to give a special thanks to Cam Smith, who helped us with our intro music. Thanks, Cam. Cam's from the Subspace Transmissions podcast. You can look them up at subspacepod.com or on any of your podcast apps. Just look up Subspace Transmissions. You won't be disappointed. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Until then, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Hello everyone, this is Marina with a quick update regarding Destination Star Trek. Literally the next day after we recorded our episode, there was a bit of a news posted online. The more detailed schedule is now posted where you can see pretty much all the panels across the 3 stages as well as the photo op schedule. So check it out online. All the information is now available. Obviously it's still subject to some changes as perhaps somebody else might be at it or something else in the schedule needs to be adjusted. But at the very least, you can have a pretty good idea as far as what's happening at the convention between the photo ops, the panels, as well as the some specialty photo ops at the bridges, for instance, TNG Bridge, Original Bridge, Klingon, Quark's Bar. So make sure to check it out.